Hello everyone, welcome to our video. We will witness the evolution of modern Indian architecture after 1990 through this video. Come, let's start our journey. After India's independence in 1947, the nation was in high need of building infrastructures for housing different activities which form an integral part of the country's operation. But it had so many constraints too. On one side, India's resources were limited. But on the other side, colonial buildings were filling every street of the nation. And all of those buildings had different architectural styles. Now, if we have to fill the neighborhood of these built spaces, then it is necessary to maintain harmony with these pre-existing buildings. This process of creating harmony is a tricky one. And at the same time, in the process of creating harmony, we should not lose our culture and identity. For such a vision, we need brilliant brains. India might have seen poverty in resources, but we never ran out of intellectuals. Our first Prime Minister, Pandit Jawahar Nehru, gathered a gang of such intellectuals to achieve his dream of building New India. Architects like Le Corbusier, Charles Correa, Raj Rewal were part of that process. Modern Indian architecture boomed during this period with a completely different form. Huge and heavy buildings were coming up with direct incorporation of elements from Indian traditional architecture and colonial architecture. The Ashok Hotel building in New Delhi, Vigyan Bhavan in New Delhi are few examples. After a few years, the process smoothly transitioned into a stable version of modern Indian architecture. Direct incorporation of elements was avoided, but the idea of taking conceptual inspirations from multiple architectural systems like ancient Indian architecture, Mughal architecture, modern Western architecture, evolved into the field. This helped the architects to achieve more efficiency in the internal functions of the building. Buildings like the Hall of Nations, STC building in New Delhi are few examples. The economic reforms of 1991 gave a boost to the field and made it what it is now. After the 1990s, modern Indian architecture saw a totally different approach both from the architect's side and from the customer's side. We will look into it more elaborately through a few examples. The first building on our list is Jawahar Kala Kendra, designed by the noted architect Charles Correa. It is situated in Jaipur, Rajasthan. The building was ready in 1992. The layout of the building as a whole has a resemblance to the city plan of Jaipur. Jaipur is named after Maharaja Jaya Singh, who built this city after getting influenced by archaic ideas and cosmic notions. Jawahar Kala Kendra is also built and named with the principle. As mentioned earlier, Jawaharlal Nehru was very keen on building modern India. His visions were far-sighted. Considering him to be analogous with Maharaja Jaya Singh, the same concept has been followed here. Correa's plan for the Kendra invokes the original Navagraha or 9 planets mentioned in Hindu mythology directly. One of the squares is pivoted to recall the original city plan and also to create the entrance. As in the plan of Jaipur city based on the 9-square yantra, in which 1 square is displaced and 2 central squares combined, in Kendra, the squares are defined by 8 meters high walls and are a symbol of the fortification walls of the Jaipur old city. The squares correspond to real and imaginary planets, such that each becomes the symbolic representation of the setting. Externally, the planets appear on the red sandstone facades as symbols inlaid in white marble and granite. At the same time, the plan configuration of 9 squares corresponds internally to the mythical qualities associated with each planet. Mars signifies power, so the place of Mars, or Mangal Mahal, houses the offices of administration. Jupiter represents knowledge, and so forms the museum library. Venus as the artistic sign encloses the theatre complex, and so on. At the very center of the universe and imparting to the planets its creative energy, the sun manifests in the stepped tank, a reservoir of knowledge and confluence, of meeting and reflection. The journey through the building, the movement through its celestial divisions, is marked by a diversity of spatial densities. Individual buildings inside coalesce into a kind of cellular reordering, random accretions of requirements that lean against the surrounding high walls like architectural parasites or group and regroup in independent formations. Such accretions create their peculiar definitions of court, suggesting the qualities and scales intrinsic to the functions housed within. The experience of the museum begins to redefine the very act of cultural display. Heritage, as the design conveys, is a matter of accidental encounter and discovery, a process that relies on the instincts and inclinations of a person moving through space, between the stage set of walls, past recreated incidents, and rituals of art and craft. Such a design conception, suggesting perhaps many internal variations, questions the very conventions of museum design and presents a physical rethink of the idea. It is easy to accept the inherent arbitrariness of this internal occupation because the external confinement is formed by so reductive, so severe a delineation. Within the 9 squares setting is an architecture of wit and whimsy, as singularly playful in its creation as it is specific to the functions demanded of it. Enclosed by high parapets, life goes on inside in the numerous demolitions, insertions, or reorganizations. But the exterior, irresolute in its material joining, like the wall of the old city, remains undisturbed. Like Jaipur, enclosed by high sandstone walls and approached through framing portals, the Jawahar Kala Kendra relives a more contemporary historical destiny. To summarize, Jawahar Kala Kendra stands as a mass modern symbol of the originality of the Vedic Indian architecture, which can be understood by the global audience. The next building we are going to see is an interesting one. The building is Kiranpani House, which means ray of water, because there is a spring at the foot of the mountain from which the house gets its water supply. It is located in Goa. The interesting part is this house is designed by a European architect, Mette Lange, for her own use to spend her winter times with family in India. So this house is a perfect blend of European traditions, modern Western style, and Indian traditional architectural systems. The project got completed in 2000. It includes traditions for atrium courtyards and large loggias covered by big beautiful low-tiled roofs which give shade for the sun and shelter for the heavy rains. The local houses are often built with bricks, made out of the local red laterite stone, the same color as the red soil of Goa. The Kiranpani house is located on a steep slope in a jungle overlooking the Terrakol River. The house is carefully placed after the existing terrain and with a desire to preserve the large trees that also provide shade and keep the soil in place. One enters the property from the road which is above the house. The house is invisible from the road as it sits on a lower level behind the jungle vegetation and the smaller buildings. One walks down in a circular motion depicting a stairway to a very large enclosed wall of laterite stone with very few openings in stained glass, also a reference to local Goan architecture. To the right of the entrance, Lange has planted a frangipani tree that casts beautiful shadows on the Great Wall during the afternoon and drops white flowers in front of the main door. One enters the house via a bridge, placed above a large gutter for the monsoon water made out of sandstone. The bridge leads onto a platform covered by a large tiled roof. When entering the house, one experiences the shift from heat to cold and from dust to jungle, but also a magnificent view over the river with the mountains in the distance and the mangrove at the end of the slope. The house is one big covered veranda from where the stunning view over the river can be enjoyed, one of the best views in Goa. The house faces northeast and catches the breeze from the river, so there is always a pleasant cool climate in the house. The swimming pool is located in front of the house with a dramatic drop to the jungle and the river 40 meters below. There are 2 cantilever decks beside the pool from where we can enjoy the sun before a dip in the pool. Let's go on a tour of the house. The big covered platform is the house. It has a very sharp, simple, and conceptual plan and section with a number of storage rooms along the Great Wall, connecting to the bedrooms and the kitchen, but also functioning as a stabilizer so that steel could be avoided in the masonry of the Great Wall. The floors are made of a golden sandstone from Jaisalmer, a stone that gets more and more golden with time and nearly shines where it is used the most. This is the main living space, a chill-out corner from where we can enjoy the view and relax. This is the kitchen. It is partially open to the outside space. From the kitchen, we get a view of the whole house. The dining furniture is cut out of one big piece of wood. There are 2 bedrooms in the main house located behind this wooden trellis wall. The trellis wall provides privacy and filters the light beautifully. It is crazy to think of having an open bathroom in the tropical region, but thanks to this private jungle space. It made this possible. The walls are covered with China mosaic, which is an old Kuan Portuguese tradition. The guest room is situated one level down the main house. This part of the house is really close to the jungle. To summarize, Lange has in Kiranpani worked with the traditions, but simplified it and put it together differently. Next comes the chapel of Our Lady of Perpetual Succour. Usually, in countries with high conservative people like India, religious spaces are not allowed to get modernized in terms of design. But here, the architect has perfectly brought modernistic elements into the design. Designed by Talula and Rajiv D. Silver of Architecture RT, in the village Mashame in Goa, the Chapel of Our Lady of Perpetual Succour appropriates traditional building materials, reducing on the usual ornamentation, thus creating a straightforward and conscious space for the community. The chapel bears no resemblance to others in the locality, yet has a deep-rooted connection to its location. The building with natural stone textures blends well with the surrounding vegetation and complements the hill slope on which it abuts. The natural stone backdrop provides a divine setting, bathed in natural light, to the prayer hall. Other than the flat portion of the site where the old demolished chapel was sited, the rest of the area including the hill slope and the hilltop beyond was replete with wild vegetation and teak trees that have been left more or less undisturbed. The chapel has been built in the most environment-friendly manner. For one, the entire hill slope has been conserved and the rocky hill slope integrated into the building to its advantage by using it as a key feature of its interior space. Secondly, the texture of this natural edifice that forms part of the building has been left undisturbed both inside as well as outside the building. One of the key aspects is the way in which the rocky hill slope is conserved and integrated to be a characteristic part of the design and building as a whole. The use of stone as a primary element for structural support and the adoption of vernacular load-bearing system of construction are exemplary of longevity and sustainable use of stone as a building material. Containing 2 blocks within it, the chapel is a simple building with a triangular profile in elevation, increasing in height from 2.6 meters at the entrance to 9 meters at the altar, covered by a sloping roof made in RCC. The main prayer hall accommodates a congregation of up to 250 people and the adjacent block consists of the meeting room, a private space for the priest and the sacristy, and storage for communion, equipment, linen and other supplies. A narrow corridor which widens telescopically towards the rear, divides the two, visually acting like the end of a tunnel, from which unhindered light floods in. The buildings have been encased in grey basalt used in the load-bearing masonry in the foundations, plinth and walls of the superstructure. Laterite, contrasting against the grey of the basalt with its rusty red, has been used in the perforated, jali, wall near the entrance, the buttresses, and the partition walls placed wherever necessary. Terracotta clay-curd pots have been used as fillers in some spans of the sloping roof and its exterior has been finished in white recycled ceramic mosaic. The flooring has been done entirely in Kota and Kadappa stone. The large existing laterite rock that forms the backdrop to the altar of the main prayer hall is the key feature of the building and this feature is further enhanced by the use of a complementing grey basalt stone in the main triangular profiled side walls that frame this rock face. Basalt stone has been used for all load-bearing foundation masonry, plinth masonry, and load-bearing walls in the superstructure with walls reaching a height of up to 9 meters, also used in masonry for the entrance flight of steps and retaining wall of the adjacent building block. The colors of the basalt stone contrast well with the laterite rock face on which the building abuts. It also blends well with the surrounding vegetation. Besides its aesthetic appeal, basalt stone is 7 times the strength of concrete, and taking advantage of the fact, the entire building which scales a height to more than 9 meters at some places was built using this stone and load-bearing system of construction. For its self-defined approach to vernacularism and contemporaneity, the Chapel of Our Lady of Perpetual Succour is small yet brave. A third building is the house on Pali Hill. The house on Pali Hill, designed by Studio Mumbai Architects, is a small sanctuary in the urban setting of Bandra, Maharashtra, India. The project was completed in 2013, represents a minimalistic design structure with the added plus of comfort and privacy. Surrounded by trees, the multi-level home consists of floating staircases and long windows that encourage natural light to brighten the interior of the home. The central focal point of the home is the open courtyard that sits in the middle of the home and is equipped with a garden and a small pond. Sliding windows, doors, and bug screens give the home the luxury of privacy, and the simple lines of the home contrast with the chaos of the outside urban environment. An existing house on a narrow site was stripped down, exposing its bare concrete frame to the surrounding trees. Reprogrammed and built with an additional floor and terrace, the house sits protected inside layers of glass, wooden screens, planted trellises, and curtains, providing grades of privacy and enclosure within the urban environment. The entrance gallery leads to a double-height living space that opens out onto a timber deck and a public garden. A polished limestone floor gently reflects the landscape while pigmented lime plaster walls softly absorb light. The house is discovered through a series of floating staircases, staggered in flight and orientation to open onto transitional spaces on each level, providing opportunities for pause and chance encounters. On the first floor, light is drawn through a clerestory volume into the family room, rendering a warm glow to this open, generous space. A corridor leading to the bedrooms culminates in an intimate window seat. Nature has been easily integrated into the interior decor. The site was already surrounded by trees, and from this to set an open garden in the middle of the house, including a tiny pond on which water lilies float, was just a step. And from that moment, the simple, yet luxurious lines of the architecture and interior design came as a perfect match with the sophistication brought by the small corner of nature inserted. And as we all know, nature is dynamic, and so is this design. It gives a fresh feel every single time. Every single part of this building is customized and designed for this particular use case. The handrails, door handles, plumbing fittings, all of them are customized. On the whole, this house is totally an unmatchable try which can never be reproduced. It stands as heaven amidst the urban space and makes the user feel fresh every single moment. Last in our list but not the least. This is the most modernist architectural work on this list. It is the LightBox restroom located in Thane, Maharashtra. The architect wanted the restroom to be really a restroom, a resting space for women. It is designed by architect Rohan Chavan. The construction got completed in 2016. The design of the restroom has been conceptualized around a tree for two reasons. One, to express the idea of integrating nature and context in the built form and using its characteristics to protect from the climate. Secondly, the shade of the tree protects the garden below from the sun, allowing filtered light, and then it only needs a transparent cover to protect it from rain. This intervention helped to maintain the light quality as exactly it was when the site was empty. This was a crucial factor from a designer's point of view. As a result of this intervention, during the day, the natural light lit up the box, filtering through the trees, and at night the box lights the surroundings. The restroom for women measures 10 feet by 30 feet, is built around an existing tree. It has 4 blocks at 2 ends. At one end there are 2 toilets with a common wash basin, and at the other end, there is a nursing room and a toilet for handicapped and senior citizens. The center of the restroom is a garden measuring 15 feet by 10 feet that is used for various activities like a place to rest, a free gallery to display art for amateur artists, a place for lectures and awareness campaigns, celebrating festivals, seasonal activities, and events. The central garden is a metaphor for spaces where people can sit and relax under a tree in shade and socialize. The restroom with toilet blocks is fitted with a biodigester to reduce the use of fresh water and improved waste management. It also includes a nursing room and has amenities like sanitary pads, vending machine and incinerator, CCTV cameras, mobile charging points, and a panic alarm system in place. The roof of the restroom is made up of polycarbonate sheets which allow natural sunlight to come in. Natural lighting reduces the production of harmful bacteria and organisms and is recognized as a natural disinfectant. The flooring for the restroom has been conceived in polyurethane. It is not only an economical option, but the industrial usage of the material makes it a good fit for a public toilet. The seamless nature of the flow eases mopping and sweeping and eliminate any dirt saturation that is common in tiled flooring. The inner walls are either made of aluminum composite panels or of stainless steel sheets. High durability, water resistance, and ease of cleaning make it fit for public toilets. while the ease of changing single panels helps keep the maintenance economical. The outer walls are also made of stainless steel with perforation. The perforated walls help in cross-ventilation of air while letting sunlight in. The perforated sheets also allow creepers to grow on them, providing a fresh dose of oxygen in the day. They have concealed the plumbing and electrical by interlacing it with the steel structure and visually hiding it from vandals to keep the structure safe. Restrooms are equipped with ceramic pots with attached cisterns. Care has been taken to sew spots that do not leave a gap between these trap in the wall. This eases the cleaning process greatly. Overall, the restrooms for women try to express a cohesive plan that interacts with the city and vice versa. This encourages a cohesive dialogue between people and buildings and sets a great example for planners and urban designers to look into issues of planning cities as one cohesive plan than in bits and parts. These examples show that the architecture in India is continuously evolving into a better version as time passes. We always stay together with the rest of the globe in terms of interventions and innovations. Thanks to the open-minded clients, well-resourced markets, ever-supporting government, and finally never settling architects for keeping us ahead in this journey. Hope you liked our video. If so, do press the like button and share it with our community.